Welcome back to Peak Reacts, and today we will be talking about the vacancy head coach position for the Portland Trail Blazers and our options as Blazers fans for us to hire someone would be Mike D'Antoni, it would be Becky Hammon, it would be Chauncey Billups, and who else we got?
South Carolina women's coach Dawn Staley, and then I think you hit on the other ones that were reported.
Just Don Staley's the last one? I feel like they're Brent Barry?
Brent Barry, Spurs executive.
Yes. So two Spurs coaches / people within that organization. Chauncey Billups, who was with the Clippers. Like you said, Don Staley, who is the South Carolina women's coach. And then, who did I forget? I forgot Mike D'Antoni, who is currently assistant for the Nets. And has been a head coach before. So we're just kind of going to walk through the pros and cons of each candidate, or at least we're going to separate it here. So, in my opinion, Mike D'Antoni and Chauncey Billups and Becky Hammon, I think, are the top three candidates right now. And then after that is Don Staley, Brent Barry, and then there were a couple other names kind of floating around. But we'll kind of touch on the first three. No offense to Don Staley or Brent Barry, but I really don't.
Yeah, we just don't, and we also don't know much about them in general. So it's hard to know anything about an executive and someone that coached women's college basketball. It's kind of hard to know if they'll be good in the NBA. So I just don't think they're probably at the top of the totem pole for the options.
So Mike D'Antoni, first of all, his pros are he's a very good offensive mind. He had the 7 seconds or less offense in Phoenix. He transformed James Harden into an MVP-level offensive player, MVP-level player in general. And his so-called shoddy defense is overrated, in my opinion. And the Blazers were 29th last year. You can't get much worse than that, no matter who your coach is. So I think he will inevitably improve our defense just by having a new face. I think if the Blazers are 20th in defensive rating while still maintaining or even going to the best offense in the league with one of the best offensive coaches, that can be very good for this team.
I think the reason people are hesitant about him is just because he's had teams that are similar to the Blazers and not gone over the hump, which, I mean, it's not a bad thing by any means.
But the Blazers' hump is the first round,
yeah,
so why does
that's
it matter?
why I say that. I'm just saying for other people's opinions. And then also, I think that they're more prone to want to go after a Becky Hammon or a Chauncey Billups because just people feel like Mike D'Antoni's time has already passed or he's old or he won't. The one issue with him is in the playoffs, the one thing I've just seen or heard about what's wrong with him is he doesn't really make adjustments that much.
And
but that's because
how we feel about that.
I mean, maybe his offense never needs adjusting, but he stuck to that small ball. With Houston, he didn't even give himself a backup option, which I think was part on the GM too. But there's just been times where he hasn't made adjustments, but he for sure would be an upgrade.
So Mike D'Antoni's pros are, again, offense, I would say, and this is for every coach, it would improve the defense. I'm not going to really throw that in pros or cons because the defense just can only go up unless you magically somehow become the worst defense in the league.
He's proven that he can get deep playoff runs with star guards like Steve Nash and
this
James
would be
Harden,
a huge step for Lillard. I feel
would be
like
big for Dame.
Cons wise though, he is older. Another pro I would say though is he's out of those three, he's the only proven head coach. Chauncey Billups has literally been an assistant coach for 1 season, and Becky Hammon, I think she will end up being a very good coach at someday because she is learning under Greg Popovich and the entire Spurs organization. I feel like she will be a very, very good coach right now. But I think she's very good for a rebuild. We don't have it's Dame's prime.
You don't want to waste 2 years trying to groom a head coach when you're running out of time with Dame and this whole core and team in general. So that's why I would lean to the other two for sure.
Yeah. Mike D'Antoni is probably my favorite right now, just from the offensive mind. Kind of more proven and kind of fits the Blazers, title time, their path to try to win a title in the next couple years. Let's talk about Becky Hammon, since we just touched on her. So she is in the Spurs organization learning under Greg Popovich, and she will be getting an interview, I'm assuming, which is very good. She I think she would be a very, very good head coach in the league. Again, like I said, I just don't think it's like gonna be a match made in heaven with Portland, because I don't think the Blazers, just because she doesn't have a proven track record yet, I just think the Blazers might look in another direction to get more of a win now coach. And I also feel like the Spurs are going to keep her and have her be Pop's successor.
Yeah, I think that's the plan for the Spurs, unless she just gets an awesome offer. She loves Portland or something. She's probably not going to leave there. Interview-wise, we interviewed Mike D'Antoni today, and then later this week we'll have Chauncey and Becky Hammon. So those are going to be our first 3 interviews. So just that's why we're focusing on these 3 in specific.
But Becky Hammon, I feel like she would bring kind of that Pop wisdom. I feel like, when you learn under someone like that, you're going to bring their tactical awareness when it comes to the floor. And I do feel like she would be a good coach. I think she would be good at like galvanizing. That was a criticism of Terry Stotts, galvanizing the team, kind of being like that voice in the locker room. Again, because it'd be her first job, I just don't think that the Blazers would look in that direction just from a pure, just the time of when we need to win a championship here with Dame's prime. With that being said, if she is the head coach, I will not be mad, because she's learned under probably the greatest coach of all time.
Yeah, and even before that, she's just renowned as a really good basketball mind. Not sure how much that'll take you in. I mean, yeah, she was a good player too. I just don't know much about her, honestly, like in her specific coaching style. But if she was our coach, again, it's an upgrade, I think.
Yes. I think at this point, everyone considers everyone to be an upgrade unless it's Jason Kidd, and we kind of got that one out of the way. The final candidate let's talk about, Chauncey Billups. So Chauncey Billups, he finished his playing career. He was a point guard. He now is an assistant coach with the Los Angeles Clippers, and this is his first season as an assistant coach. And it's been rumored that when he came into the league to do coaching, it's more of he's going to end up wanting a GM role, like more of a GM role. That's what I read, like an assistant GM role. So I think what an interesting thought is that, someone said, what if we move Neil Olshey to like president of basketball operations, and then have Chauncey Billups do the day-to-day, kind of the everyday decision making. But that's kind of, I don't even know why I brought that up, to be honest.
I think the thing about him is he is a all-time really good point guard. I mean, a couple-time All-Star. He's been with the Clippers, so he has experience like in the playoffs and stuff. Dame obviously likes him because he was one of the 2 names initially brought up. So, again, I think he would really help Dame thrive. It's just the rest of the team. And again, I don't know a ton about him and his specific style of coaching.
Again, the other thing one con, and this is not even, I feel like, to Chauncey Billups' fault. It's just a lot of people have had a lot of backlash to this just because, again, like Jason Kidd of Chauncey Billups' past, I don't know, there might have been a sexual assault allegation. I don't think he was ever charged, but there was a whole investigation about it. And personally, I do not care about that. I think, you want to go ahead? You want to say something?
I want to say something that's kind of it's on the same topic, but it's just something I saw on the Blazers' just Twitter. Someone said, why does David Vanderpool not get any recognition to be the head coach? And then some random person commented and says, it's been rumored that he was disruptive or did bad things in the Blazers organization. And then someone automatically said, without even learning about it, just says, okay, cross him off my list. I don't want to see his name again. It's just like, you don't know anything about it. You don't know anything about the situation. You're just trusting a random person's source.
I agree with that.
It was, again, and this goes with Chauncey too, it was 20 years ago. So, I mean,
and yes, while while that incident, we're not saying it doesn't matter. It does matter, but I think he's learned from his mistakes, and I don't think he should be deprived of an opportunity to become the head coach just because of something that happened 20 years ago.
And it's just an allegation. There was never actual proof that it happened.
Yes.
Again, it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
And we can get into the details, and people can argue that it did and didn't. That's not the point. And I think that's a good point you brought up, because I think people are quick to jump to conclusions. They kind of, once they take a stand on either one side or the other when it comes to a certain opinion about someone, they become super fixated on that point, and they really don't often change or listen to the opposing view.
Kind of like how people are with Neil Olshey.
That's very true. Neil Olshey, I actually went on Blazers Edge, which is the SB Nation site, And I read it, and I go to the comments, and people are just hating on it. Like, this is the worst interview he's ever done. Like, what is he even saying? And I go back and watch snips of the interview, and what he's saying makes sense. Like, obviously, you want to, yes, he is. Neil O'Shea does this thing where he, like, talks the talk and not necessarily walks the walk, but he's in a small market. He can only do so much, I feel like. So that's the other thing. Once people have preconceived notions about people, they already go out and be like, I don't want him, and they don't even change. So give Chauncey a chance if he becomes the head coach. Don't just immediately boycott the team, as people who have Twitter fingers will say. I don't know. It makes me mad. But Chauncey Billups, I think he'd be a good candidate. I would not go with him just because, again, no experience. Although between him and Becky, it's really close. I honestly, all three of them, I'd be happy with all three of them. But I think I am leaning towards Mike D'Antoni just because he would. His greatest skill is what this team is very good at, and it could really propel this team, I feel like, personally.
I would say Mike D'Antoni is probably at the top of mine too, but just the one thing is I just don't want to turn into the 2019 Rockets it was and just die on a hill of a one-play style. I still want to be able to have multiple different ways you can attack the ball game. I don't think Mike D'Antoni is specifically like that. Like, that was just a one-year anomaly, but it was the last thing we remember him for. So that's just what I want to say.
Let's be honest, those Rocket teams were tough to watch with all the ISO ball. And that's what people have been complaining about, and me too, to an extent, is ISO ball. When the Blazers move the ball and get assists, they become a very good team. See Game 1 and Game 4 against Denver. When they don't move the ball, and part of, I'm going to take Game 5 out of the question because Dame was not passing the ball, nor should he, because he was going absolutely off. But Games 2, Game 3, when you delve into more ISO ball, and CJ is sometimes guilty of this, you can, I don't think the Blazers are as good, and that's, seen in the games. So.
As long as we go, I would much rather see a 7 seconds or less offense than a ISO ball.
I agree.
Even though James Harden won an MVP with it, I would rather see teams success.
I think I'm saying this because I'm biased toward Mike D'Antoni, so I might not be 100% right, but I think that's more because of James Harden than it is Mike D'Antoni.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Because James Harden's just an exquisite offensive player. Probably one of the best of all time. And Mike D'Antoni, I think that's a good thing that people saw, is that he's playing to the team's strengths. The GM gave him a small ball 3-and-D lineup. He said, all right, we're going to play analytical basketball and just go ISO threes in the paint. We're either going to make layups or shoot threes, and a lot of it will be ISO ball. I hope that's not the Blazers' case. I think if we trade Nurk, we'd kind of start going down that path. Personally, if we don't trade Nurk, he's still a creative big, and I don't think, the Rockets didn't have that, so I think we'd be okay.
But so 3 interviews going on this week. Who knows? We could see a hiring by the end of this week, for all we know.
Very true.
So just stay tuned for that. If something big happens, we'll post something about it.
We'll jump on. We'll jump on the mic.
So you don't want to miss that. But
talk about it. React to it.
Is that all we have?
I think that's good for now. That's kind of where we stand with our thoughts about the main coaching candidates. There might be another one that pops out. Maybe Brent Barry or Don Staley makes, a charge in the coaching search. If they do, we'll talk about them. But right now, where we think the search is, those 3 candidates are your best bet to become the new Blazers coach. And those are our pros and cons for each of them. So we will see y'all later. Bye.
Peace.